Hello, good day from New York. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. And welcome to this virtual pension town hall, which is the first one in 2025. We are very happy to be here with you today and thank you for being present. I see we already have over 370 attendees, which is a wonderful turnout. Thank you for being here. So to start with, on behalf of the UN Pension Fund and its leadership and all of us colleagues in the fund, we would like to wish you a very healthy, blessed and peaceful 2025. We hope it's going to be a good year for all of you and your loved ones, and that you can hopefully enjoy retirement if you are a retiree, or simply receive your benefits from the fund without any problems throughout the year and be part of a healthy, well-funded UN pension fund. We look forward to another year of serving you and hopefully bring further modernization to the fund, of which you will benefit by having easier access to us, getting hopefully faster replies throughout the year. So we are working hard to try and not only do our day-to-day business, but also modernize the fund as the fund that we are at large. Today's session is specifically for retirees and beneficiaries of the fund. So anyone in receipt of a retirement benefit, disability benefit, or survivor's benefit from the fund. And we hope that this session will help you have a better understanding of some items that we consider are key information for someone in receipt of a regular monthly benefit from the fund. Today, we are the group from the client services teams across the different locations that we are, with the help of our colleagues from OICT for the running of this session. So big thanks to all my colleagues and everyone, excuse me, who participates in making this session happen today. And of course, again, to you for being here today and listening to us. As I mentioned, we are going to go over topics that we think are especially interesting / useful. We have a lot of time, 2.5 hours, but it is limited time to cover everything. So there might be topics that we cannot cover today that you are hoping to get answers to. In that case, please use our contact channels on our website, the contact form on our website to contact us, so that you can ask the questions that are not potentially answered in the session today. Before we start, just some housekeeping, as we say. First of all, just so you know, this session is running here in MS Teams, where you are. We are now close to 500 people. It is now also running on our YouTube channel. So that's another channel you could use today and in the future for any of the for any of the sessions that we are running, where you could simply log into the UN Pension Fund's YouTube channel and follow the session there. The YouTube submission does not allow for Q&A, whereas this session here in Teams will allow you a little bit later to also submit questions and receive answers from the team of pension experts that are here and ready to help answer your questions. We will open the Q&A a bit later because we want to make sure that first we go over some items and have your full attention. We know ourselves how it is when we attend sessions and the Q&A is in parallel open from the beginning. Oftentimes that means we are focused on the Q&A and write our questions, but not necessarily. It's difficult to listen at the same time to what is being presented. We will open the Q&A and you will be able to ask questions and receive answers, but thank you for your patience until we open those. I'm really sorry. I'm coming to you with a cold, so apologies if I cough a little bit, but I hope I don't have to interrupt the session for coughing too much. That's for the housekeeping. And then once the Q&A is open, thank you for please submitting general questions, not specific to your own case, that would include personal information. I'm sure you are self-aware in that sense, but it is important that you do not share here your pension details like your unique ID number or other confidential data. We would not want that to be publicized here, so therefore, please keep your questions general in the sense that you're not sharing any personal data that could then be visible to others. Of course, you can ask your questions for the topics that you're interested in here. And again, as much as possible, we will answer. However, we would not be able to answer personal questions because we're not able to go into your personal case file during a session like this. Thank you for understanding. Today's session is in English. We will have the same session run in February in French. So today English, next month the same session with the same information will be given in French in the same format. And finally, for those of you who know me, I'm Christine Kartner. I'm the Chief of Client Services and Outreach in the fund in New York, and I'm part of the Client Services team and have been with the fund for many years. With my team, we are all experienced pension experts who hopefully can answer any questions you may have, or at least guide you where you can find information if needed. All right, with this we will start. I'm going to ask my colleague Regina to launch the session with an icebreaker, as one says. So just a question to maybe start and get a sense of where we are all at right now in this moment. So the question, you saw it, is at the beginning of this new year, what is your main hope for 2025? You're not limited to one hope, of course, but if you are willing to share, you can just type your answers. It's a Slido system where you would link to the Slido and then you can provide your answer if you like to take part in that exchange on what we hope for 2025. So I see some answers coming in: health, peace, prosperity, job security. I see greed. I would hope it's not a hope for 25, but maybe that there is less greed in the world. Positivity, happiness, cooperation, the truth. That's very meaningful nowadays. Facts and the truth, I agree. Certainty, of course, good health. I think we all agree that in good health, we can face most adversaries. A peaceful world, very much so. We all hope for more peace worldwide and democracy. Thank you for sharing all these thoughts. Freedom. Travel, that is nice. Seeing the world. Interdependencies. Unity. Living one day at a time, being in the moment. Thank you. That's a good approach. Respect for the environments. Thank you. So I see a lot of thoughts coming in. Thank you so much. Justice, joy, mental and physical well-being. I see to be out of the UN and receiving my pension. Thank you for that one. So I see that today here, we are not only those who are already retired and in receipt of a benefit, but also some colleagues who are preparing for retirement and attending this session to get information on in retirement and what might be useful once you are actually retired. That is great. So before we close our icebreaker here, I'll just have a last look. Balanced chakras, love, mental and physical well-being, human rights, planetary health, peace. Thank you so much. With this, we will close our exchange, and thank you so much for all of you for participating. I think that sets the tone for what we are doing here, which is trying to work together for a better world, but in the pension fund specifically to help have you a peaceful retirement so that you can enjoy retirement, hopefully in good health and in peace, with the financial means to take care of yourself and your loved ones. All right, so we're moving on. Just an image of the group of people that we serve, possibly. Before we start, so I already mentioned this, who are we here today? The session is focused on information that is useful for those who are in receipt of a regular monthly benefit from the fund. So this could be someone
Christine,
in receipt.
I'm sorry, you're not
Yes?
sharing your screen.
Oh yes, because of the Slido. Thank you so much. Hold on, let me reshare. We are back together on the page. Here we go. I hope you can see. So, reminder of the content of this presentation being focused for those who are in receipt of a regular monthly benefit from the fund, whether that is someone in receipt of a disability benefit or, of course, any form of retirement benefit. And there we have those in receipt of a deferred, early or normal retirement benefit, or those who are in receipt of survivor's benefits following the death of their loved one who was a retiree or participant in the fund. So this could be spouses, ex-spouses, children, secondary dependents. So, of course, as I just mentioned, when we saw during the Icebreaker, we also have colleagues who are preparing for retirement, who are looking to understand what is key to know once they're actually retired. So thank you to everyone for being here. And hopefully the session will help you get a good sense of what you want to know. And if not, if we cannot cover everything, at least a good sense of where you can find the information that might be useful to you on our website, in your member self-service, or how you can contact us to obtain the information that you need. Someone's microphone is on, I think Fred. If you can switch it off, thank you very much. All right, going on. So, just some general information. Please keep an eye on our pension fund website for any kind of information that might be useful, but especially also for any future virtual pension town halls that you think might be useful for you. Last year, we started this outreach initiative of holding monthly virtual global town halls accessible to anyone who wants to join. This one is part of these sessions. This year, we want to expand, and we are going to also offer regularly scheduled, probably we're going to call them pension chats, which will be shorter sessions that cover less topics and will be focused on one topic, where we will do an introduction on the topic and then open the floor to Q&A. It will be probably a bit more interactive than a big session like this one can be. And again, it's going to be focused on specific topics. These topics can be relevant to participants or can be topics relevant to retirees and beneficiaries, or can be relevant for any of you. Of course, we will announce them in the same manner as we announce these pension town halls via mass emails and on our website on the specific web page, which is the one that you see on the screen about these pension town halls. And as always, for this session and all sessions we are holding, we will publish the recordings and the related PowerPoints on our website after the session took place. So if anyone is familiar with this webpage I'm talking about, if you go there, you will see that you can access the recordings and PowerPoints for all sessions we held last year, and we will continue to publish these documents and recordings, of course, as we go along and hold more of these sessions. All right, now there's also an e-learning module for anyone who's preparing for retirement, especially I would say there is a preparation for retirement and separation e-learning, and there is also an essentials for retirees and beneficiaries e-learning. The content is probably quite similar to what we go through today, so maybe you don't need to also do the e-learning, but if you cannot attend the full session today or you want to solidify the information, feel free to take these e-learnings. This one, for those who are preparing for separation and retirement, definitely the one that is related to that topic. There's also an e-learning on the 2-track, so that you get the information you need about what you are interested in. And I see that the Q&A seems to still be open. Normally that should be closed. So to my colleagues managing the Q&A, please keep it closed for now. We will reopen the Q&A a little bit later and we will announce when that is done. In the meantime, my colleagues will answer the questions that come into the Q&A. Thank you. Now, the 2-track. For anyone who is here today interested in the 2-track, please note that today's session will not include 2-track information. Why? Because that is a very substantial topic, which is covered separately in sessions we held last year and we will hold again this year. So if the 2-track is specifically what you are interested in, please, in that case, visit the topic page I showed you a bit earlier for pension town halls, where you can access a recording of the pension town hall dedicated to the 2-track, and where you can, of course, learn all that you need to know about the 2-track. There's also, as I mentioned, the e-learning about the 2-track, and of course, we have a web page dedicated to the 2-track where you can get substantial information on this topic. So thank you very much. In case you are interested in the 2-track, please use the resources advertised on this page to see the information that you may need. Right. So what are we going to cover today? All of these topics that you see here on the page. By the way, I'm looking to the left because I can see the pages here on a screen on the left-hand side. I'm sorry, it's not right in front of me, but I will try to look the least necessary to the left side, which is probably distracting. All right, so what we want to cover today are these topics. Initially, some updates on the UNJSPF, just in case you're interested in funding status and what the fund has been doing in 24 and will be doing in 25 in terms of modernization and other, I guess, news that might be relevant for you. Then we will look at website and member self-service, because these are very important tools for everyone to access relevant pension information when you need it. We will go over death-related matters and survivors' benefits so that you have essential information in that regard. We will talk about the annual proof of life requirement. Those of you familiar with this requirement, you know that every year you have to submit proof of life to the fund, and you can do that in 2 forms, either using the CE form, the Certificate of Entitlement form, which is a paper-based document. Or if you prefer, you could use a biometric application, an app, which is called the Digital Certificate of Entitlement app, or DCE app. And we will explain how to use the DCE app in case you're interested. So we will talk about this proof of life requirement that everyone who is in receipt of a regular monthly benefit from the fund must comply with every year to ensure that their benefits continue to be paid month after month and year after year. Then we'll have a look at some practical information on how to change address or bank details. That is something that, of course, regularly occurs in someone's lifetime, that you move and need to update your address. And similarly, maybe you change your bank account or you want to change the currency in which you're being paid. We will just provide you some information on how to do that. An update, or rather some information on how pension benefits are adjusted for cost of living over time. That's called the COLA, the cost of living adjustment, just so you're aware of how that works. Some information about the pension fund's emergency fund. That is a fund that would allow for one-time financial assistance to someone who is experiencing financial hardship. And I'll explain more about what the emergency fund is and how to apply for emergency fund assistance and what the conditions are to apply. And then finally, how to contact the fund. So this we should cover within the next, how much time do we have left? Roughly 2 hours. I will have a short break in between after we have covered the digital certificate of entitlement. It won't be a long break, probably 5 to 10 minutes, probably 5. And I will, of course, announce the break when it comes. Right after the break, we will open the Q&A. All right, so going into this first chapter, which is an overview on what the fund is currently up to, I would like you to take away 2 main understandings. One, the fund is fully funded and financially stable. I think that is probably one of the key concerns for anyone who is a member in the pension fund, whether as a participant currently or already in receipt of a benefit. We all want to be sure that our pension fund is financially stable and that benefits can, of course, be paid without any problems, not just now and in the near future, but in the long term, so that anyone who is currently a member of the fund and participating, paying contributions, will be assured to have a regular income after retirement or in disability or for our survivors. So the takeaway is our fund is fully funded and financially stable, and the fund continues to modernize. The fund is extremely active in trying to move into where we are, the 21st century, and ensure that we can continuously improve the way in which we service you all, retirees, beneficiaries, and participants. That takes a lot of effort, a lot of work, and mostly the people that are doing also the day-to-day handling of pension, whether that is implementing new benefits or servicing clients like we do in our team, answering queries, or paying the benefits, ensuring they are paid, that the accounts are managed, and of course that the cashiers, the banking activities are done. All of these people are also involved to some degree in this modernization effort. So we have our work cut out for us. It is interesting, it is exciting, and it is a lot, but it is also very rewarding to know that we hopefully contribute to everyone who is working for the UN system eventually being in receipt of regular income replacement after retirement or in disability or as survivors. Now, a few key numbers. We have the numbers currently for 2023 or up till year end 2023. Those are the consolidated numbers. We are now currently beginning 25 in the process of consolidating all the accounts and numbers for 2024. Here I'm sharing the numbers for 2023 because those are the official numbers. So we have 24 member organizations. We had 1 new member organization join on the 1st of January this year, the OPCW, with around 230 new members. So that's a new member organization as of 1st of January. We served in 2023 or by year end 2023 close to 150,000 active participants. So members of the UN organizations that are member organizations of the fund, with an increase of just over 4.3% from the prior year. And we served around 86,000 beneficiaries of monthly payments. In other words, of retirement benefits, disability benefits, and survivors benefits. So all in all, we serve close to 236,000 members of the pension fund, and we expect a slight increase in 2024. Those numbers will be published later this year, towards mid of the year, the numbers for 2024. In terms of funding, the market value of the fund as of the 10th of January stood at just over 94.6 billion US dollar, which is a solid funding, and there is, as you all probably know, constant fluctuation in the market value of the fund due to how the market performs. But all in all, the trend over time has been steadily upward, even though there have been periods of turmoil over time. But we are fully funded. The funding ratio is over 100%. The latest actuarial study was done by year-end 2023, and it delivered a funded ratio of 111%. You probably know that a ratio exceeding 100% means the fund is in a very strongly funded position. So this is very good news for the UN Pension Fund. In terms of payouts versus pay-ins, you see here the numbers. Contributions received in 2023 amounted to just around 3.4 billion, and benefits paid amounted to just over 3.52 billion US dollar. So as always, we have a slightly higher amount of benefits to be paid than contributions received, which means we have to fill that gap by using some of our assets, of the however much billions we have in our assets. If you're interested, here is just a more visual overview, and you can see on the right-hand side how the value of the assets of the fund has evolved since the 1990s. As I mentioned, it's a steadily upward curve with some dips over time, which have to do with financial crises, possibly pandemics, etc. But generally speaking, you see the upward trend. If you look at the latest column in 2023, very much to the right, you see that in 2023, the fund closed with just over 88.2 billion US dollar. And today, we are at 94+ billion dollar. So the upward trend has continued throughout 2024 into 2025. I leave it at that. I think you have all this information, obviously also on our website, if you wanted much more information on the investments of the fund. Now, in terms of where we pay benefits, you have here a map. This map is again based on 2023 data. We will update it once we have the consolidated data for 24. You can see that most of our beneficiaries are scattered throughout the Americas, but of course we have a very heavy numbers also on the African continent, in Europe, and in the South Americas. So that's just to give you an idea where our beneficiaries reside across the world. And of course, you probably know this, but we pay benefits in just about 190 countries worldwide. Now, those of you who attended the last session of this kind, you have seen some of these slides already. But for those of you who are here for the first time, it might be of interest to know that our population is constantly aging, which is of course good news because it means life expectancy has increased significantly over time. So you can see here that compared to 2000, in 2023, so just around 23 years after, so we're comparing the numbers between 2000 and 2023, you can see that there was an 8-fold increase in the group of those that reach 90 years of age or older. That gives you, I think, a very good idea of how there is a steady increase in life expectancy. And what does this mean for the fund? Obviously, it means that we have to be prepared and funded in a manner to ensure that we can pay benefits for life to those who are entitled for life, which are anyone entitled to a retirement benefit and anyone entitled to a disability benefit, Mostly those are also lifelong entitlements. And of course, surviving spouses who also receive lifelong entitlements. So knowing that we have our constantly increased life expectancy in our membership means that the fund has to be, of course, equipped to ensure that we can pay benefits for life to all those entitled. And of course, that is part of what the actual studies of the fund assess and then inform the fund and the plan design of the fund. In terms of performance, the fund has continued to outperform its benchmark and had paid new benefits within 15 business days from the date of receipt of all required documents by the fund for over 92.7% of new beneficiaries. So that is above the 90% that the fund has as a benchmark, and this continues to be the case. We saw that in 2024, the fund's number of benefit payments has increased quite significantly because of heavy downsizing activity, especially in peacekeeping missions. So there has been a significant increase in the number of benefits that needed to be paid in 2024. We will see whether this trend continues in 2025. Modernization. The fund continues to modernize. We have new systems. I will talk about that a little bit. The digital certificate of entitlement app is being adopted more and more by our members, of our retirees and beneficiaries. And without wanting to bore you, but we now have over 50% of retirees and beneficiaries using the digital CE app to issue their annual proof of life in the form of the DCE, the Digital Certificate of Entitlement. So this is the app I mentioned earlier, which is a biometric system where once someone has registered for using this DCE app, they can then issue year after year their proof of life in the form of the digital CE inside the app. I will talk about the app a little bit later. So over 50% of our retirees and beneficiaries who have to provide their proof of life every year are now using the app. And in 24, we had over 38,000 users of the DCE app, which is more than half of our 71,400 and something beneficiaries who had to provide a proof of life. And in 25, by mid-January, we have already over 24,750 users of the app who have issued their DCE for 2025. So we are starting quite strong, or not we, but you, our members are starting quite strong using the app, which is great because we hope that more and more people will find this app useful to issue their proof of life. Of course, the app is not mandatory for anyone. If you do not want to download the app and use it, you don't have to. You can continue to provide your proof of life to the fund in the form of the certificate of entitlement form. We will talk about it a bit more a bit later. Also, modernization, we have implemented a new, it's called a customer relationship management system, a new platform to handle all the queries that the fund receives from its clients. So we spent a good part of 2023 and 24 working on this, especially 24, on designing and implementing the first stage of this new system. The system is now live since early November 2024. We are using it to handle all queries that reach the fund since November 2024. You, as the clients of the fund, should not have noticed a big difference in terms of response time to your queries. If anything, hopefully we will, with time, accelerate the response time once the system is fully implemented. But at this stage, we are handling all queries in the new system. And what you maybe experience as a main difference in terms of interacting with the fund for your queries is The way you submit your queries has very slightly changed on the contact form, and we'll look at that a little bit later. And when you submit a query, you will receive automated notifications from the fund. Now, the hope is that eventually it will be a much more user-friendly interaction for you and us. I know that at this stage, there are still some kinks that need to be ironed out, and there may be some of the automated notifications that are, I want to say, annoying because they're more than before, or the format in which you receive them is not necessarily as user-friendly as we would like it to be. Just so you know, we continue working to try and figure out ways to make this all smooth and as user-friendly as possible. So thank you for your patience. If you have noticed a difference in us interacting with you for your queries, it is probably because of the new system. And as all new systems, they come with improvements, but also with some challenges. And hopefully soon, very soon, you will mostly experience improvements and not challenges. So that that new system, sorry, is called UNJSPF Connect. So that's what we refer to in the fund when we talk about this query handling system. You may see news about it or in some way see this term. So when you see UNJSPF Connect, it is the platform that we are now using to interact with you clients. It is a system that is part of the ServiceNow platform for anyone who's familiar with what are these platforms and who are vendors of these platforms. And we continue improving and adding new functionalities as we go along, and 2025 will continue to be a year during which we continue to add new functionalities for this new platform, UNJSPF Connect. In terms of payroll, I hope all of you have received your payments regularly without interruption. Of course, if you changed bank account or you did not submit your proof of life for 2023, you might have experienced an interruption for that reason. But otherwise, hopefully, there has been no interruption. The payrolls were issued without any hiccups month after month. There was a COLA for the US dollar track of 3.4% increase in April 2024. So those of you who are not on the 2 track would have received that increase last April. And let's see what will happen this year in April. And those of you who are on the 2 track, you have probably also received cost of living adjustments according to your country of residence as applicable. There were some disruptions in global I hope you can hear me again. Can someone please confirm? I know we lost connection for a moment.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Can you let me know when did you lose me? What is the last thing you heard I was talking about?
About the disruptions in payments in certain countries.
Okay. Thank you, Regina.
And your
Thank you.
presentation
back
is
to,
also
let me
gone.
share,
Yes.
to where we got disconnected, or I got disconnected. I apologize for that. So I was talking about disruptions in some countries like Sudan, Russia, where there were some issues with payments reaching our beneficiaries. And I was saying that our payments teams and financial teams were very proactive in trying to address these, figure out different payment channels to ensure that everyone hopefully receives their payments without interruptions, or at least without difficulties. Next. Sorry for that. The fund continues to be driven by what we call its CARE strategy. CARE standing for client-focused, action-oriented, relationship builder, and efficiency-driven. these are terms that we use to talk about our strategy. Of course, these are kind of vague, I'm sure, but they stand for the main focus where the fund wants to focus its modernization projects. So in terms of, in terms of projects for 25, as I mentioned, we will continue to work on improving this new platform, Connect, the query handling platform. We will introduce multi-factor authentication to enhance security when you access member self-services, specifically your member self-service with the fund. So you will see that probably within the next few months, couple of months, when you access member self-service, you will be required to set up something called multi-factor authentication, which means you will have to re-register by adding additional information to your member self-service profile, which will include additional contact detail, your email address, and your telephone number. I'm sorry. And you will be required to answer a security question so that every time you log into our member self-service, you access in a more secure manner. Hopefully it will be self-explanatory and user-friendly, but if there are any issues, our support team, our contact center, will be equipped to handle the questions you may have with multi-factor authentication. So this is something in the pipeline. It's not yet active. You will be informed when multi-factor authentication applies to you and you have to take action. Another project that might be interesting to you is that our communications team is working on having AI-generated automated translation services available for the content of the fund's website. All content on the website, not the resources, but the actual content of the pages on the website, will eventually be available in the 6 official UN languages. As you probably know, the official working languages of the fund are English and French. Those will always be the languages in which we will have audited and verified content at all times. However, for those of you that may wish to use our website in the other 4 official UN languages, you will be able to access this AI translation, knowing, however, that that translation cannot be audited by the fund, given that it will be real time. So once this is available, you will notice there will be a disclaimer alerting you to the fact that any language that is not English and French is for information purposes, but we cannot guarantee the exactitude of all translations. So in the event of questions, we would always refer back to the English or French if there is any question about content. But generally speaking, and those of you who are interested in artificial intelligence, I'm sure you are aware that nowadays AI services for translation are very powerful. So we expect that the translation will be very high quality and hopefully useful in helping more people get access to information more easily by being able to read it in the language of their choice. So that is also in the works and will be activated within the next few months. I'm not going to go into the benefits of the new Connect system. If you're interested, please refer to this slide in your own time when you refer back to it in the future. I'll also not go into more detail on multi-factor authentication. If that is of interest to you, please refer to this in your own time. Otherwise, we will continue, as I mentioned, to do all we can to enhance outreach. We will have these additional pension chats or shorter topic-specific interactive briefing sessions where we will take one topic, for example, let's say survivors benefits or divorce or I don't know, there are so many topics, disability, whatever it may be, focus on that topic and have a 1-hour session to have a more interactive exchange with those who are interested. We continue to create more video content, which we see is being used a lot by our users of the website. And of course, make updates as much as we can to the contents of our website so that you have access to up-to-date information on anything that is relevant to you when you need it. Now we will go to the website and member self-service so that you can see key information that may be of use to you when you navigate being a retiree or in receipt of a benefit, another benefit from the fund. So, website and member self-service. What are the key takeaways from this chapter? Number one, the fund's website truly is a useful tool to keep yourself informed. So as much as possible, I would say bookmark the pension fund's website. And from time to time, even if you don't necessarily get information pushed to you by us, go to the website, look at the news, just so that you see what might have happened over the last few weeks and whether it might be of interest to you. And most importantly, if you haven't done so yet, try and become a regular user of your member self-service of the fund, your personalized pension space. Register for access to member self-service. This member self-service will give you access to really important information, and it will also allow you to submit documents to the fund if you need to in the future. It will give you access to tracking whether we received your proof of life, be it the form or the DCE of the certificate of entitlement, etc. So as much as possible, if you can, please register for self-service. This is my main message to you for this chapter, if you haven't done so yet. Now let's take a tour on the UN Pension Fund's website. I'm going to take you over there to show you some key pages. Sorry, I'm pulling over the website. I hope it will work without a problem. I would ask one of my colleagues if you can see the website that I have now pushed to the presentation page.
Yes.
Yes, we see.
Great, thank you very much. So here you see the fund's website, the homepage, and I'm sure that probably all of you are already familiar with this, but if not, it's simply unjspf.org. So it's very straightforward to access. So here you have, of course, information that we think is key information. If you scroll down a little bit, you can see news and announcements where you see the latest news and announcements that have been made. The fund's newsletter is also sent out to every member of the fund for whom we have an email on file with key information. So every month you should get a newsletter from the fund to your email address, the one that you have recorded with the fund. So here you can see that one of the latest news items was actually for retirees and beneficiaries, inviting you to issue your 2025 certificate of entitlement if you haven't done so yet, if you are a user of the Digital CE app. So for you, those of you who are, you know what I'm talking about. If you are using the app, you can start from now till end of 2025 to issue your digital certificate of entitlement. So if you haven't done it yet and you have the app on your mobile device, I would encourage you, go in there, submit your digital certificate of entitlement for 2025, and you can have peace of mind that you have complied with the proof of life requirement for 2025. Okay, so in addition, what is useful? If you click on for clients, this is where you will see information that is topic specific. Here you have all the topics that for which we have a specific topic web page with more information. You see it's organized in alphabetical order. A lot of these topics might be of interest to you, and some of them are going to be addressed today. For retirees and beneficiaries, I would say topics that are usually of interest are the certificate of entitlement, giving you an update on the process and what is required, and the digital certificate of entitlement for those of you who want to use the app and want to use the step-by-step guide, for example, to know how to register, to use the app, and to troubleshoot. Other useful pages for retirees and beneficiaries could be, why are there fluctuations in my monthly benefit amount? So if you click here, it will take you to a page giving you reasons that could cause fluctuation in your monthly benefit amount. It could be due to your amount going forward. Many reasons. This is explained on this webpage, etc. So if you don't want to see all topics, you could also say, based on your situation, if you're separating or retiring, you can click on this vignette and it will take you to all the topic pages that are most relevant in this context. Or if you're retired or receiving benefits, you click here and it will take you to the page where we push specifically the topic pages that are relevant for retirees and beneficiaries to you. Okay, the page is turning, but you get the idea. Survivors would click maybe here on Survivor and then be taken to the Survivors page, etc. So this is under for clients. You can also navigate this by selecting the topics here or right here on the homepage where we also share those vignettes for the topic pages. Investments. For those of you who are interested in knowing more about the investments of the fund, and specifically if you want to know what is the current asset situation for the fund, you should go to these pages under investments. Specifically, the historical fund performance will give you an overview of the fund's investment situation at this time or in the very recent past. Next, resources. So here you can access, you can access various resources, whether the regulations and rules of the fund, which few people actually want to read necessarily, but information about member self-service. That is a very good resource because here is explained how to access member self-service, how to register for it, but also how to contact the member self-service support team by addressing an email to specific mailboxes so that you get fast response. There are reports, publication and policies, forms, e-learning modules, information about future pension town hall sessions like the one today, videos, booklets, exchange rates by country, etc. Okay, so now we have a problem with the website. I'm sorry. There's some definitely connectivity issues. So under resources, you also have an important page linked, which is the page of FAFIX, the Federation of the Associations of Former International Civil Servants of the UN system. I'll try and go there because it's an important page for retirees and beneficiaries. Hopefully we are going to the page. Okay, now by having clicked on FAFIX, it took me to the web page of FAFIX. We're no longer on the pension fund website, but on the FAFIX website. Here, this is the federation page. Now, if you're interested to know whether in the country where you reside, there is an association, a local retiree association for the country of your residence, you can check here under member associations where it says member association list. And if you click there, you will get the list eventually of all the countries where there are AFIX retiree associations. And it might be of interest to you to reach out to them and see whether you want to join any of these. So you see it's organized by country of residence mostly. It starts with Argentina, then Australia, Austria/Vienna, Bangladesh, etc., 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 and ends with Uruguay. So you see that many countries in the world actually have retirees and beneficiaries that have set up an association for retirees, former civil servants of the UN system. And a lot of our retirees are members of these organizations, which are usually very useful in terms of informing retirees of key information that is relevant to them in general about the fund, but also in their country where this association exists. So again, how can you get to this page? Simply by going to resources and clicking on FAFIX, which will take you to this page I showed you, where you can then go to the association page. Next, About Us contains information about the fund, governance, leadership, etc., etc. And then next to that, Contact Us. Now, obviously, the Contact Us webpage is very important. This is the page where we provide you with all the official contact channels for the UN Pension Fund. So here is where you should go if you want to contact the fund. You can then choose whether you want to write to us or you want to call us. And you see here it's organized by New York office, Geneva office, and toll-free numbers. If you go to toll-free numbers, you have by country, and there are over 65 toll-free numbers. You have the countries for which we have toll-free numbers to call us. Or you have under New York or Geneva, a general number that you can call to reach the fund's contact center. The fund has a contact center, or you could call it a call center, that functions 24 hours, Monday to Friday. So we are functioning from Monday, basically early morning, till Friday midnight. And you can call us 24 hours a day. You will get service. Service is provided in English and French. To some extent Spanish, simply because our contact center is located in New York and in Spain. So we are lucky that we have Spanish speakers available, though it is not a working language of the fund, but official languages are English and French, and you will get service in those languages. So in terms of other information by New York or Geneva office, what you will see is, for example, our walk-in service days and hours. We have 2 days per week where we provide walk-in services in New York and Geneva. You don't need an appointment. You can walk in. The hours are provided here. The days are Tuesdays and Fridays. And depending on New York or Geneva, the hours are either noon to 4 p.m. in New York, or for Geneva, the hours are 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. in Geneva. So this information is provided here on this Contact Us page. The page can be used in English or in French if you prefer. So in terms of information, before you come visit the pension fund, please check on this page. Sometimes the fund's walk-in services are closed. It's exceptional, but it happens. It can be due to us having training for fund-wide all staff in the fund, or it could be because we had, for example, the pandemic or others. So please make sure to check just in case before you come, to make sure the fund's offices are not very exceptionally closed. That is very rare, but I just want to prevent people coming for nothing. Next, if you want to write to us, please send your request, your written request, using this form. You first would select whether you are a participant or a retiree or beneficiary. Let's say you are a retiree beneficiary, and let's say you have an issue with member self-service. I would say you can, of course, call the contact center. Or if you say, whatever, just let me send a message, it's not that urgent, you usually get support for member self-service issues within less than a day. So then what do you do next? You go and select, what do you need help with? Here you have a list of general topics which might be what you need help with. In this case, let's say you need help with member self-service. You would select, I need help with one of the fund's online services or applications, which could be the member self-service or the digital CE or another application that exists. You click here, and then you specify what exactly do you need service with, for example, with member self-service or with the digital certificate of entitlement, whatever it may be. Let's say it's member self-service, you click here. It gives you direct access to a member self-service support page. I would say visit that page just to make sure your question cannot be answered on that page. You say, yep, I've read that page. You move on to provide your unique ID number, whatever that might be. You provide your title, of course. Let's say I'm Miss. You provide your name. Just doing it to present, huh? I provide my email, whatever that might be. I confirm my email. If I have a phone number, I also put that in. And I tell the fund where I reside, let's say in Andorra. And then if you want to explain what you need help with, you can provide some text here. Once you have done all that, you say, I am not a robot, and you submit. That will submit your case to the pension fund. Let me submit it. I think, let's see if it works. I'm going to test submitted because I want to show you the acknowledgement. So once you have submitted, normally you would now get an acknowledgement. There you go, up here, that provides you not only some information, but also your case number. So everyone who submits a query to the fund will actually have a reference number. And I would suggest take note of this reference number. And if in the future you have follow-up questions for this specific query that you just submitted, you can also refer to this reference number and say, this is further to an earlier query. You don't have to do that. But all your written queries should be submitted via this contact form. Please don't write directly to people you know in the pension fund. Why? I was just out for 2.5 weeks, during which I did not have access to my email. I received over 1,500 queries during that time in my personal mailbox. I will probably never be able to go through all these emails plus what I'm getting now while I'm back at work. However, anyone who wrote through this contact form, that query falls right into a bucket that is being served by our pension experts. And depending on the topic for which you contact us, it will go to the teams that are experts on those topics. So by submitting your query via the contact form, you are ensuring that you get fastest and best service. By writing to an individual like me, you risk writing to me when I'm out, or I am obviously all day long, probably in meetings and doing all kinds of things, so that I cannot guarantee that I see all emails and get to all emails in a timely manner. I try to, but I can't guarantee that. So please use the official contact channels to contact the fund. Whether you prefer to call us or you prefer to write to us or both, please use these channels. And of course, again, if you are in New York or Geneva, please feel free to visit us. And if you are in Nairobi or Bangkok, there are also very small liaison offices where you can set up an appointment. In that case, please refer to the local information that is usually provided on the UNON or ESCAP websites, or the retiree associations there will have that, so that you can get the contact details for those local offices. Those are very small offices, so they cannot ensure service, and we're not publicizing it here because they would be overwhelmed. You would have to really please reach out via the local services. But you can always contact us here in the manner that is available. All right, so that is for contact us. And then finally, I would say there's one last page that might be helpful, which is urgent assistance. Back to our website. So if I go back to the homepage or wherever, urgent assistance. That page exists in 6 official UN languages. If you go to the language of your choice, let's say English, It will take you to a page that gives very key information for two main topics. Number one, non-receipt of your regular monthly payment that was already in payment. So if you are a retiree or beneficiary who used to receive your regular monthly payments and suddenly they stop, go to this page, follow the instructions and write to the email address provided here. We will handle your request as top priority to help and address your issue and see why a benefit is not being paid regularly and advise you on what needs to be done to ensure that it can be reinstated and payment resume. That's one topic. Topic number 2 on this page is how to report the passing of a retiree or beneficiary of the UN Pension Fund. How to notify the fund, where to notify the fund, and what information to provide. That is provided here under number 2, the key information that should be provided to the fund and how to contact the fund. There is a specific mailbox you can write to. Of course, you can also use the contact us form, but you can also use these mailboxes. Whether you use the mailbox or the contact us form, your query will reach us and will be handled as a priority query. That is it for the website. Now moving on to member self-service. If you haven't yet set up your member self-service, please follow the instructions to do so under the member self-service webpage. I am on that page right now. You should see it. It tells you how to register and then why it is useful, what you can do in member self-service as retirees and beneficiaries. It explains every tab in member self-service, tab by tab, and it explains some issues that you might need to be aware of. There are tutorials, there are videos explaining how to register for member self-service, how to recover your password, how to, I don't know, whatever it may be. And these tutorials exist in English, French, and Spanish. If you need help with member self-service, here on this member self-service webpage on our website about member self-service, you can see that there is an email address, MSS support. If you write to that email address, this support team will respond to you within 1 day. So please use these contact details if you need help with member self-service. As I said earlier, one of the key takeaways I would like you to take away from this chapter is that member self-service is really useful. And if you haven't yet registered and you can use it, please do so. Now, I will take you to my member self-service, which is not the same that you see as a retiree or beneficiary. Yours looks a little different because once you become a retiree or beneficiary, you will have access to new functionalities that are only relevant once you are actually in receipt of a payment. But what I want to show you is some key features that are the same for participants and retirees. First of all, you see that my member self-service is in French. If I want to change the language, I can now do that. Once I'm inside member self-service, I can navigate from English to French and vice versa. I set mine up in French, but of course I can use it in English, and I will show you how to do this. So I will go to compte in French, which is account in English, and I will update my language preference. I will set it to English. I will submit and I wait. And I go to home and I'm going to log out because I want to show this to you in English. So I'm going to log back into my member self-service. Okay, now I'm in. It's now in English. First, you just accept the disclaimer, then you are inside. Here you'll see on the homepage how you can update your language preference. How do you do that? You go to account. Under the account toggle here on the top right, you can do some key things. You can update your email address. So if you want to change your email from what your email is to a new one, you just simply enter your new email and you can update. You can reset your password. If you want to change the password that you have associated with your member self-service account, you can do that here. If you want to change the security questions that you have selected for your member self-service account, which are key to reset your password if ever you needed to, you can do that here. And finally, you can update your language preference. Again, as I just showed you, you simply click here under language preference, you select your preferred language. So if that is now not English, but French, you select French, you save it. And once you have done that, your member self-service will be in that new language. You have the options of English or French, no other languages for the time being. Now, once you have changed the language, all documents that are being published in member self-service for you will be in that new language going forward. If you had documents published already before you changed your language, they will remain in the language in which they were initially published. So in my case, for example, you can see that I have here some estimates, right? I changed my language preference in November from English to French. From then on, my estimates, for example, were generated in French. And you can see that in the label here. Then I changed it back to English. So my estimate again is in English. But what is important to understand that if you want to change the language, you can do that. But documents generated and visible in member self-service will be in the new language only going forward, not retroactively. All right, so that's what you can do in accounts. So the accounts tab is really important to change email, password, security questions, and your language preference if you wish. Otherwise, we will go through the different tabs just to show you what is key, but I will show that to you in the presentation. So I'm going to get back to the presentation at this time. All right. So member self-service. You know, hopefully now, where to find the information you need about member self-service and how to set up member self-service by following the instructions in the tutorials on the member self-service webpage on our website. Now, once you're inside member self-service, a reminder that you can get support. The email addresses are also provided here on the page that I'm showing you to get support. If it is technical support, you would write to MSS support, or you use the contact us page to request support by selecting the category and service that is applicable. Or if you don't know your unique ID number to set up your member self-service and you have no access to any communication from the fund, which usually includes your unique ID number. So for example, your certificate of entitlement every year or your official benefit letter would include your unique ID number for fund purposes, your reference number for the fund. It's a 9-digit number. It includes usually a few zeros at the beginning, and it is your lifelong reference number for the fund. So you need your unique ID number to set up member self-service. If you don't have it, check whether you have any communication from the fund, a letter, your CE form or something, and that usually includes this 9-digit unique ID number. But if you have nothing that provides this unique ID number, in that case, you may wish to write to the fund to request your unique ID number. And in that case, you would be able to write to this request UID only email address provided on this page. They will send you your unique ID number, and of course, then you can complete the registration for member self-service. Now, let's have a look at some of the key tools you can access as a retiree or beneficiary inside your member self-service. First of all, as I already mentioned, and sorry for the typo here, you can navigate member self-service in either English or French. You can verify personal information. You can view payment details for your case. You can retrieve important documents like your official benefit letter, statements, And if you're not on the 2-track, you can also retrieve your annual certificate of entitlement form inside Member Self-Service. You can also then submit important documents to the fund, including your certificate of entitlement, inside your Member Self-Service. If you're not on the 2-track, you can change your address in Member Self-Service and provide an emergency contact. There are other items you can do, but let's go and have a look a bit closer. So you just saw my Member Self-Service. What looks a bit different is here the Member Self-Service of a retiree or beneficiary, where you can see that there are a few tabs that you don't have in Member Self-Service for participants, specifically Emergency Fund. That tab is only available for retirees and beneficiaries Member Self-Service. I already mentioned that changing password, email address, language preference is on top right, where I have an orange box here, where you have the account toggle and you can go there to change any of those items. Now, for the menu items in more detail, I'm not going to go through them here, but I just want you to know you have a whole page here explaining one by one what you can do under each of these tabs. I would say address and emergency contact might be a useful tab because this is where you can change your address, your mailing address only, if you need it, and you can provide a name and mailing address for an emergency contact. That is possible provided you're not on the 2-track. Under disbursements, you see all payments the fund has made to you over time, including, if applicable to you, you can see deductions made for after-service health insurance, month after month. On the right, documents. Here you can see your official benefit letter, which contains key information about your pension entitlement from the fund. You would also be able to access your certificate of entitlement form if you're not on the 2-track, and other documents. E-forms. Here you would be able to access all the official forms of the fund pre-completed with your name and unique ID number in either English or French version. Under approved documents, you can track receipt by the fund of your CE form and or of your successful issuance of the digital certificate of entitlement in the DCE app if you happen to use the DCE app. So proof documents is to confirm that the fund received your proof of life. Personal information provides some of your personal information, not all of it. It's still being updated by the fund. Emergency fund is where you can submit an initial request for emergency fund assistance. Estimate is where you could run a 2-track estimate if you're interested to see one. MSS document upload is where you can upload any document that you want to submit to the fund, whether an official form that you have scanned after having signed and dated it, of course, and completed it, or be it your CE form or any other supporting documents you need to submit to the fund. So these are the tabs you have access to and that are all useful. I'm skipping these pages. They are just a repeat in more detail of what I already showed you. Here is just a visual of the different tabs, the address tab, the disbursement tab. This is interesting because here, again, you don't get a salary slip from the fund every month, but here is where you can check month after month what payment was made to you. And it includes all payments, whether one-time payments, retroactive payments, lump sum payments, and of course, regular monthly payments. And it shows you if any deduction was made from your monthly payment for ASHI, after service health insurance. Of course, only if you have actually instructed ASHI to deduct monthly premium from your pension payments. So if ever you are wondering whether a payment was made to you, you should probably first go to Member Self-Service and check here. And then if the information isn't sufficient or you don't see what you need, of course, reach out to us. But most people actually find here the information they are interested in. Also, if you see a fluctuation in your monthly benefit amount, so you see in your account that the amount you received for the months given is different than what you expected, check here to see if it might be that there was a change in the ASHI premium amount that was taken out of your pension for that month. That would influence, of course, what is deposited into your account by the fund. Documents. As I already mentioned, for those who are not on the 2-track, here you can access every year, early July and after, your annual certificate of entitlement form. So if you wish to use the certificate of entitlement form and not the app to submit your proof of life, as of July, you can access the form here, provided you are not on the 2-track. You can download the form, print it, hand sign it and date it, and then scan the document and re-upload it back to the fund under the MSS document upload, which is the before last tab in your member self-service. Also on this page of documents, as mentioned, you can access your official benefit letter, estimates that you generated here in member self-service, and other statements that you may have requested from the fund, including your statement of benefits for tax purposes if you made a request for such statement to the fund in the past. Under e-forms, I already said, you can access all the key forms or all the forms of the UN Pension Fund. They are pre-completed with your name and unique ID number and include all the relevant forms that you may need to request a change in payment instructions or a change of mailing address if you don't want to do it in MSS, 2-track forms, etc. Now, under proof documents, this is where you will see whether the fund received your returned certificate of entitlement for a given year. You can see here that there's a new feature. Those of you who are using the digital certificate of entitlement, in the past, you were not able to see whether it was successfully issued here in your member self-service. You would only be able to see whether your DCE was successfully issued inside the app itself, but not here in member self-service. Many of you ask whether we could add DCE tracking also here in member self-service. We listened and we updated this feature, so now you can track every year not only whether the fund received your form, your certificate of entitlement form, but also if your DCE for a given year was successfully issued. So both the certificate of entitlement form and or your digital certificate of entitlement issuance can be tracked here in member self-service. Okay, so remember, you don't have to submit both the DCE and the certificate of entitlement paper form to the fund. Either or is fine. So if you issue your digital certificate of entitlement, there's no need to also send the form. Or if you say, I don't want to use the DCE app, I want to use the form, which I'm used to, that's fine. Then you can send to the fund only the form for the certificate of entitlement year that is applicable. But both issuances can be tracked here in the fund for the form once it has been received by the fund and for the DCE once you have issued it inside your DCE app. Emergency fund. Emergency fund requests can be made by retirees or beneficiaries who are experiencing exceptional financial hardship and who want to apply for a one-time emergency fund assistance, provided they fulfill the conditions to apply for such assistance. I will talk about the emergency fund a little bit later, but if in your case you think you are eligible, you can submit an initial request here and submit supporting documents for your request under the MSS document upload feature. And then you will be contacted by the fund if additional information is needed and to inform you whether or not you qualify for a one-time emergency fund assistance. Estimate. Under the Estimate tab in Member Self-Service for Retirees and Beneficiaries, you can run an estimate to know what your benefit payment would be if you were paid under the local track for a given country of residence as of a date going forward. Again, two-track information is not included in today's session. There is a separate recording of a past session, and there will be new sessions this year on the two-track if you're interested in that topic. There's, of course, also a lot of information on the two-track on our website. And finally, Member Self-Service Upload. Under Member Self-Service, you can find on our website resources that explain how to upload documents to Member Self-Service. So here under Member Self-Service Document Upload, you would be able to, I'm sorry, I think I missed a page. I realized it's missing. I'm very sorry. So there should be a page explaining MSS Document Upload. Just to say again, under Member Self-Service on our website, you will see a document explaining how to upload documents under this tab in Member Self-Service. You can upload official forms, supporting documents as you wish. In that case, you would not need to send those documents to the fund by mail. The one important thing to remember when you upload documents to the fund is that before making a scanned version of a document, if it is a signature document, we need you to hand sign the document and, of course, add a date before creating a scanned version. We do not accept electronic signatures in the fund. So yes, you can submit a form in electronic version via Member Self-Service, but before submitting it, you have to hand sign and date the form and then create the scanned version and upload it here in Member Self-Service. I would say that the vast majority of documents reaching the fund nowadays is submitted via Member Self-Service Document Upload. Voila. So that is what I wanted to share with you about Member Self-Service. We are now going to have an overview on death-related matters and survivors' benefits. Main takeaways from this chapter. Please download the key information on what to do in case of your passing so that your survivors know where to turn and what to do at that time. You could probably put this presentation, print it out and put it together with your, I don't know, testament and other documents in the location where you have documents relating to your passing. Or you can even forward certain web pages to your family members and say, here, maybe bookmark these. This is important information about the pension fund and what to do in the event of my passing. I have shared this information with my husband and with my daughter so that they know what to do should I pass away with regard to the UN pension fund. Also, very important, when someone passes away, when a member of the fund passes away, the fund must be informed as soon as possible after the retirees or beneficiaries passing to prevent any overpayments. That is very important. So one of the key instructions I gave to my family members is, if I pass away, please inform the fund immediately so that they can do what is necessary to stop any payments to me, prevent overpayments, and then inform my survivors of what is required to move along and implement survivors' benefits as applicable. So these are the two requests I would have for you. If anything that you take away from this presentation is to make sure that you share with your survivors in the form that you're comfortable information on where they can find relevant information about what to do in the event of your passing. Whether you share with them links to certain web pages on our website, or you print out some documents and put it with your will, whatever you are comfortable with is perfect. There are videos on our website about survivors' benefits, what to do both for you at this time and if someone is a survivor, and what they should be doing at that stage. These are very short videos of a couple of minutes. In addition, key information, and this is maybe something that can be printed out. Send an email to the fund at UNJSPF-related@un.org, or via the contact form, or by calling the fund to inform the fund of the passing of a member of the fund. The details provided below should be provided by the person informing the fund. Very importantly, the fund needs to receive as soon as possible a death certificate for the deceased member. That is our proof based on which we can continue assessing survivors' benefits. Without a death certificate, it would be very difficult to move to implementing survivors' benefits. What will happen in the fund once we have been informed of the passing of a retiree or beneficiary? We will stop, we will stop the payment of the retirees or beneficiaries' benefit. And then, as applicable, the fund will reach out to the survivors to request, if necessary, reimbursement of overpayments. Of course, if we are informed ASAP, hopefully there is no overpayment. But if we made an overpayment, we will have to request reimbursement. Once the death certificate has been received by the fund will review this case to determine whether any potential survivors are entitled to a survivor's benefit. If that is the case, the fund reaches out to those survivors and requests submission of specific payment instructions and supporting documents. If not on file, the following documents would be required from an entitled survivor: the retiree's death certificate, for surviving spouses, copy of the marriage certificate and birth certificate of the surviving spouse, or if no birth certificate, at least copy of a valid passport. Where divorce is applicable, we would also request a divorce document if we don't have it on file yet. And if applicable, we may require, if we determine that a survivor's benefit is payable, we will require submission of a duly completed, dated, and hand-signed form PENS E2 from the entitled survivor. The signature of the survivor on that form would have to be authenticated by an authenticating official, notary public, or UN official, or other government official, so that we can then move to implementing the applicable survivor's benefit. The payment instructions form can only be provided to the fund at the time of determining survivor's benefits, not in advance. Now, how do you know whether your spouse would be entitled to survivor's benefit in the event of your passing? The general rule is, if you were married at the time of separation from service and remained married to the same spouse until your death, your spouse would normally be entitled to a lifelong survivor's benefit. Normally. The determination of entitlement can only be confirmed or made and then confirmed following your death, but this is a general rule. If you were married to the same spouse at the time of participation and remained married to the same spouse till your death, that spouse is in all likelihood entitled to a survivor's benefit. A divorced surviving spouse would be entitled only if a set of conditions is met, and for those conditions, please refer to the webpage of survivor's benefits. When would a spouse not be entitled to a survivor's benefit from the fund? Usually, if you married after separation from service and did not purchase an annuity for this new spouse married after separation, then that spouse is not entitled. Also, if you separated before April 2001 and elected a deferred retirement benefit with a partial lump sum, in that case, there is no surviving spouse's benefit payable. Now, how long does it usually take for a survivor to start receiving their entitlements after they have submitted all required documentation to the fund? And this is very important. From the date of receipt of all required documentation, duly completed documentation by the fund, normally the fund implements a survivor's benefit within 15 business days. If all is in good order, it's actually not 4 to 6 weeks, but 15 business days. But this is subjected to all documents received in good order. Oftentimes, unfortunately, the fund does not receive the required documents for quite some time for various reasons. And this is why it is so important that you please provide the information that you can provide to your survivors on what is required so that the fund can move forward ASAP with determining eligibility to surviving spouses or other benefit and then implementing it. So key is that we receive a death certificate ASAP, and then thereafter that we receive the documents listed a bit earlier so we can ensure that we can implement the benefit that is payable to a survivor. When there are delays, usually it has to do with not getting the required documents, or it could have to do with the marital situation of our deceased former member not being clear. We have numerous cases where we think we know who the surviving spouse is, and suddenly we get information that such spouse was already divorced, or that there are actually several spouses, or that someone got remarried while not yet divorced, etc., etc. So whenever there is a lack of clarity on the legal situation for a surviving spouse, we first have to make sure we have clarity for all potential survivors, potentially entitled survivors, before we can implement any survivor's benefit. So the more you make sure that we have all the information we need on your potential survivors, spouse, ex-spouse, several spouses if you had in a polygamous marriage, the more you do to help the fund have your file in good order and there not being special delays for the implementation of survivors' benefits. How much will your surviving spouse receive from the fund as a surviving spouse? In general, the amount of a surviving spouse's benefit is equal to half of your full pension at the time of death. So the value of your full retirement entitlement or pension entitlement at the time of death and before you potentially commuted part of your benefit into a lump sum. In other words, if you took a lump sum as part of your early or normal retirement benefit, and therefore your regular pension payments are proportionately reduced for life, for your life, your surviving spouse's survivor's benefit will actually be based on the amount of your entitlement prior to you taking out the lump sum and reducing your own retirement benefit. So again, a surviving spouse's benefit is 50% of your full entitlement prior to any lump sum commutation if that applied in your case. The amount is payable for life to the surviving spouse or surviving ex-spouse if entitled, and is adjusted for cost of living over time. We do not pay a lump sum to a surviving spouse. Surviving spouse's benefits are only regular monthly payments. And a certificate of entitlement needs to be submitted every year to the fund by any entitled survivor as proof of life to continue receiving the benefit without interruption. In other words, while you are alive, you have to submit proof of life every year. Following your death, if there's anyone entitled to a regular monthly survivor's benefit, they will have to submit proof of life every year to the fund to receive their payments without interruption. So what can you do to facilitate the establishment of your spouse's pension after your death? Here is some advice. Please establish a file for your spouse where you include printouts of relevant pages from the website and the contact details for the fund and anything that you deem useful from our website or this presentation, which you will also be able to download and print from our website. For Form PENS E2, the payment instructions form, if you have a joint bank account with your spouse and your bank would agree not to close your account after your passing, you could already fill the account details on Form PENS E2, page 2, if you think that is helpful. Otherwise, it's probably easiest if your spouse simply completes this form him or herself at the time that the time comes where they have to submit this form to the fund with all the up-to-date bank details, etc. Please do not send a Form PENS E2 to the fund right now while you're alive, as this would confuse our systems and we would get a case opened for you as if you had passed away, which we certainly do not want. What can you send already? Right now, while you're alive, you could send already copy of your marriage certificate, copy of your spouse's birth certificate and valid passport or other ID document available. And if you are divorced from a spouse that was reported to the fund in the past because you were married when you were a participant or into retirement, then please also send that copy to the fund. You can just upload all this documentation in your member self-service. This way, we can put those documents into your file so that we have the key documents, key supporting documents already, which will help the fund determine entitlement to survivor's benefits following your passing once we have been informed. And lastly, please inform your surviving spouse, or your spouse, sorry, that should they ever become entitled to surviving spouse's benefit, they will have to comply with the same annual proof of life requirement as you do during your lifetime. Now, for children, we often get questions from parents that are parents of disabled children about what to do for their child to prepare so that things are the easiest following their passing. So here is some information specifically for those retirees and beneficiaries that may have a disabled child. If your child was already deemed disabled by the UN Pension Fund and you are in receipt of a disabled child's benefit from the fund, then the following should apply. If following your death, the other parent of the child is still alive, they would become the natural guardian of this child and receive payments on behalf of the child as a surviving child's benefit. In other words, a surviving child's benefit for your disabled child would then be paid to that other surviving parent. If they are also a surviving spouse, they would receive both their surviving spouse's benefit and potentially this surviving disabled child's payment together. If, however, both parents of a disabled child are deceased, or a child does not reside with a surviving other parent, then a legal guardianship would need to be arranged for such disabled child. So if the child is in the custody of a third party, the child's benefit would be paid to this legal guardian appointed for the child by the appropriate judicial authority, meaning a court, in the disabled child's country of residence. In that case, the fund would pay the surviving disabled child's benefit to a guardianship account. So this is something that is important to understand, that if a child does not have a parent that can take care of them following your death, then a legal guardianship arrangement needs to be made. Of course, in some cases, a disabled child can actually handle their own financial affairs. And in that case, if the child is age 16 or older, a surviving child's benefit can be paid directly to the child into an account in the child's name. We have detailed information about disability benefits and, of course, surviving child's benefit on our website. And if you have any questions about this topic, please do not hesitate to contact us so we can provide more information as applicable. So, how can you prepare for this situation of a disabled child as a survivor? If your child cannot take care of their own affairs, consider who could be a legal guardian in the event of your passing. Be aware that a disabled child's benefit may be subject to periodic review. In that event, someone has to arrange for medical reports to be submitted to the fund periodically in line with the instructions from the fund in that regard. A certificate of entitlement as proof of life would also need to be submitted to the fund every year for this benefit, for this child's benefit. And again, see the booklet on legal guardianship and the type of bank account that is required in case a legal guardian is going to take care of your child's affairs following your passing. The benefit of a disabled child can only be paid to a guardianship or trust account in the name of or on behalf of the child, or into an account in the name of the child, or a joint account in the name of the legal guardian. I know this is a lot of information. I would suggest if you have any questions about this, refer back to this presentation, to our website resources, and of course, contact the fund with any question you may have in this regard. Now, if you have a disabled child that is not yet approved by the fund for a disabled child's benefit, then please make sure that if you're a retiree and in receipt of a child's benefit, the child's benefit would normally stop at the end of the 21st birth month of your child. If the child is approved for disability, the benefit can be paid beyond age 21 and is then subject to periodic review by submitting medical reports. So, if your child has not yet been approved for a disabled child's benefit by the fund, please inform the fund ASAP of the fact that your child is disabled and receive information from the fund on what needs to be done for the fund to recognize your child as a disabled child. In general, in this context of disabled children, but also in general, we think that it is good to read the legal guardianship and estate booklet by anyone or for anyone. This booklet contains a lot of important information about what if you cannot take care of your own affairs in old age, and in which case, what would the fund require and what would be accepted by the fund in order for someone else to take care of your affairs and your payments from the fund. The fund does not recognize power of attorney or enduring power of attorney. The fund only recognizes legal guardianship, court-appointed legal guardianship. So this booklet is very relevant and important, and I think it's useful to read, even though you may not need this at all at this time, just to be aware of what would be applicable in the future. Now, again, back to the survivors in general. This is a form that we are referring to as Payment Instructions Form E2, where the survivor will have to provide the relevant information, their name, they have to select the benefit that is applicable to them, and they would have to sign and date this page 2, hand sign and date, and have their signature authenticated by an authority that is entitled to authenticate signatures. It could be a UN official, it could be a government authority or a notary public. The fund can only accept a duly certified signature document. We would not accept this form without signature authentication. If there are questions about who is able to authenticate a document, there is a whole web page on signature authentication on our page, on our website. I would suggest to refer to this, but generally speaking, it's UN officials, government officials, and or notary publics. Now we are going to have a look at the digital certificate of entitlement and the certificate of entitlement in general. So here we are going to talk about the proof of life requirement from the fund. What are the main takeaways from this chapter about the certificate of entitlement? I would say the following three. Everyone in receipt of a regular monthly payment from the fund must submit their proof of life to the fund every year, at the latest by the 31st of December of a given year. Second, you can provide your proof of life either by using a so-called CE or Certificate of Entitlement form, or by using the digital Certificate of Entitlement app, which is a mobile app. And finally, if you are going to use the mobile app, the DCE app, and you're on the 2-track, make sure that you are in your country of residence when you issue your DCE. So these are just some key points to take away from this chapter on proof of life or certificate of entitlement. There's a whole video on the certificate of entitlement, what its purpose is, who must comply, etc. This might be a video of interest to you to watch. It's really, truly, I think, very short, 2-3 minutes maximum. So what is the certificate of entitlement? It is the yearly proof of life document or biometric document that you need to submit to the fund to confirm that you are alive and for you to continue to be entitled to the payment of your monthly pension. In other words, if you don't submit this yearly proof of life to the fund, you risk the suspension of payments of your benefit. This is a requirement for anyone receiving a benefit from the fund. So, there is a lot of information on our website on the certificate of entitlement. I would suggest anyone who is not yet familiar with this exercise reads the webpage on the certificate of entitlement. And if you're considering using the digital certificate of entitlement app to provide your yearly proof of life instead of the certificate of entitlement form, then you should also visit the digital certificate of entitlement webpage. So the certificate of entitlement is the yearly proof of life you must submit to the fund. How can you submit this proof of life? You can either submit it in biometric form using the so-called digital CE app, or you can use the paper-based CE form, which is sent to every retiree and beneficiary by the end of June, early July, every year, provided someone has not yet completed their digital CE. I will explain this a bit more in a moment. So you have two ways of complying with this proof of life exercise. You can either simply use the paper-based form, date and sign this form, and then return it to the fund in the way that you prefer. Or you can use the mobile app, the DCE app, and issue your proof of life in biometric form and thus comply with this requirement of providing your proof of life. So one or the other are acceptable ways of providing your proof of life. You have the entire year of 1 January to 31 December to use the mobile app and submit your digital biometric proof of life if that is the way in which you want to provide it. If you prefer to use the form, the CE form, the paper-based form, then you have, from the moment that paper-based form is issued on the 1st of July till year end to download this form or receive it by mail, hand sign and date it, and return it to the fund in the way that you prefer. So, the latest by 31 December each year, the fund must have received your proof of life one way or the other, either in the DCE app or by having received your duly completed CE form via either member self-service or by mail. If no DCE or CE form are received from you by the fund by end of December, and no other acceptable proof of life or email was received to indicate that you are alive, the fund will have to suspend your payments effective June of the following calendar year. We spent nearly 6 months, a little less, I would say 3 months, 3-4 full months in the fund from January to early May, following up with anyone from whom we haven't received their CE form or DCE to try and get what we need so we don't have to suspend you. This is a very intensive exercise done by the fund for every case where we have not received what we need in terms of proof of life. But if we don't receive what we need at the end of this follow-up, we will suspend your monthly payments because we have to assume that you are no longer alive. Now, people often ask us, do I have to use this new mobile app, the DCE app, or can I use the CE paper form to submit my annual proof of life to the fund? It is entirely your choice. You decide whether you want to use the mobile app and issue your proof of life in biometric form by submitting a photo, or you prefer to continue using the paper-based CE form. It's your choice. You are not obliged to use the DCE app. But as I mentioned earlier, more and more beneficiaries use the DCE app because they find it much easier. At this time, I told you we have over 50% of our retirees and beneficiaries submitting their CE inside the DCE app. But we still have a large number of people who still prefer to use the CE form, and that is fine. The form is just as acceptable as using the DCE app. Now, if you prefer to use the DCE app, we would encourage you to issue your digital CE in the app before 15 June. Why? In that case, we would not send you a paper-based form of the CE. Why? Because we would already have your proof of life inside the app and there's no need. So if you want to prevent receiving also the paper-based form, if you are a user of the DCE app, then try and issue your DCE in the app before 15 June, in which case we will not send you a form. You would have complied with the proof of life requirement by issuing your digital CE in biometric format inside the app, if that is the case. And even if you haven't issued your DCE by 15 June, you still can do so even if we send you the CE form until the year end. So in other words, users of the DCE app have the entire year 2025 or 26 or whatever it may be to comply with the proof of life requirement and using the app. You can use the app anytime to issue your annual digital CE anytime between 1 January and 31 December. And again, back to the form, the paper-based form, for those of you who prefer this, that form becomes available only as of 1st of July. For those who are not on the 2-track, you can access the form inside your member self-service. You can download it, print it, hand sign and date it, and then upload the duly completed scanned version of the form back to the fund inside your member self-service. For those who are on the 2-track, you would not be able to access your CE form inside member self-service. You would have to receive a form by mail, and then you can sign and date that form, and then you could upload the duly completed, dated, and hand-signed CE form back to us inside member self-service. But you would not access the form inside member self-service in July if you're on the 2-track. So for those of you who are on the 2-track, you can use the DCE app, no problem. Or you can use the CE form, but then you have to wait for the form to reach you by mail as of 1st of July and whenever it reaches you through mail services. If you are on the 2-track and you use the DCE app, make sure you are in your country of residence that you declare to the fund when you use the DCE app. For those who are on the 2-track, you must be in your country of residence before you issue your DCE inside the app. Why? Because the app knows whether you are in country A or B when you issue your DCE. And if you are in a different country than the one you declare to us for 2-track purposes, we would have to assume that you moved, and we would reach out to you to request new proof of residence from you for the new 2-track country. So if you haven't actually moved, but you are only on vacation somewhere, don't issue your DCE at that time. Wait till you're back home and issue your digital certificate of entitlement inside the DCE app once you're back in your country of residence. So what I just explained applies to those who are on the 2-track, specifically for those who are on the 2-track. And specifically, if you intend to use the DCE app to issue your proof of life every year. Okay, what does the form, so we're back to the CE form, look like? This is a form, and you see the box where you have sign here is where you should put your handwritten signature, and underneath you should put the date. The form includes your unique ID number, your name, and the date it was sent to you, as well as retirement number, the kind of benefit you are receiving, and for those who are on the 2-track, the country of residence for 2-track purposes. This is what the paper-based CE form looks like, which is the form sent to anyone who is in receipt of a regular monthly payment and who has not issued proof of life inside the DCE app by 15th of June. This is the back of the form, and you would receive this form by mail. And for those who are not on the 2-track, you can also access the form in electronic format inside member self-service. How do you complete this form? I think it's clear. You have to hand, date, and sign this form. Then you can return it to the fund. How to return it to the fund? You can either submit it electronically inside your member self-service under the MSS document upload feature, or you can mail it, in which case you have to mail the original form back to us. Or if you're in New York or Geneva, you could also drop your original duly completed form off in person in our mailboxes. If you cannot sign the form because you have maybe broken your hand, or you can no longer sign documents, you can no longer really write, then you could affix your thumbprint in the indicated field on the bottom right corner here. And in that case, you would have to have your thumbprint witnessed. Thumbprint must be witnessed ideally by a not ideally, by a witnessing official. That could be a notary public, local government authority, or possibly a treating physician. If a doctor authenticates your thumbprint, In that case, you also have to submit a medical certificate from the same doctor, and that medical certificate must explain why you're using a thumbprint instead of your usual signature. The witness has to put their name, their title, and their official seal or stamp of office, as well as sign the gray area signature field. That is for thumbprinting. For more details, please visit our website. Now, what happens if you can't use the digital certificate of entitlement app and you have not received your certificate of entitlement form by mail? This happens because mailing services in many countries are not reliable. What to do? In that case, you should please contact the fund as soon as possible. Ideally, please send us a letter with your signature and a date on it, as well as your full name and your current mailing address. And then you can either send this letter by mail or upload it inside your member self-service. With this letter, we then will determine whether we are satisfied as substitute proof of life, or if we needed something else from you, we will reach out to you. But this kind of letter would help prevent the suspension of your benefit. Of course, if you could use the DCE app, that would be even better. In that case, you could simply issue your proof of life inside the app, and you don't have to worry about receiving the CE form by mail. So these are the options. If you do not receive the mailed CE form, you can either access it inside your member self-service if you're not on the 2-track, or if you can't access member self-service and you can also not use the DCE app, please send us this letter. And again, you can either mail the letter or you can upload a scanned version of the hand-signed letter in member self-service if possible. Now, what if your benefit is actually suspended? That happens. Last year, we suspended just around 950 benefits out of a total of, I think, 71,000 beneficiaries who were supposed to provide their proof of life. So 900 benefits had to be suspended because we did not receive the required proof of life or other indication that someone was alive. And out of those over 950, we have already reinstated more than 2/3 into payment. So what happens if your pension is suspended? Please contact us as soon as possible. Follow the instructions of the payment stop page on urgent assistance on our website. And as soon as we have acceptable proof of life, which could be in the form of a signed document or in the form of the DCE, if possible, the digital certificate of entitlement, we will then reinstate, of course, your entitlement retroactively back to the date of suspension. In that case, it is very important that if you had a period of suspension, it is important to remember that if you are covered for after-service health insurance, that no deductions can be made if your benefit is suspended. You should absolutely reach out to health insurance to make sure that all is in good order, again, also with your health insurance for the missing premium payments. Just a reminder here that for those who are not on the 2-track, if you want to use the CE form, the paper-based form to provide your proof of life, it is under the document tab in member self-service that you could access your annual CE form as of 1st of July in member self-service. And again, once you have returned the form, you can track in member self-service under approved documents whether we received it. And of course, for those using the DCE app, you can also now track if the DCE was successfully issued here in member self-service. Now, just a quick overview of the digital certificate of entitlement. Now, what is key takeaway for this topic? Number 1, you can issue your digital certificate of entitlement anytime between 1 January and 31 December. If you want to use the digital certificate of entitlement app and you have any problems registering or using it, contact the fund and you will get help from the DCE support team. The email is provided here and in several places in the presentation and on our website. And again, a reminder, if you are going to use the DCE app, you have to make sure if you are on the 2-track that you use it while you are in your country of residence as declared to the fund to prevent any issues. There's a video specifically for the digital certificate of entitlement, and there are many resources on how to register for using the DCE app. I just want to do some highlights here because I know time is passing, but the highlights are that anyone can use the digital certificate of entitlement app. You have to register to use it and be authorized by the fund to use it. So there's a process to follow, which is explained in detail, step by step, in a guide available on the digital certificate of entitlement webpage. Again, anyone, retiree and beneficiary, can use the DCE app to provide their proof of life, including those on the 2-track. I already mentioned this, but I will repeat that ideally, if you intend to use the DCE app, please try and issue your DCE before 15 June, just simply so that we don't also send you the paper-based CE. Once you have issued your DCE, we are satisfied and no other proof of life must be submitted. I just said, ideally, please submit the DCE before 15 June. But remember, if you can't do it before 15 June, there is no problem. You can use your DCE app to issue your digital certificate of entitlement as proof of life anytime between 1st of January and 31 December every year. So I won't go into too much detail here on how to actually register for the DCE app use, but I would encourage you, if you're interested in using the app, please refer to the resources provided on our website. All resources are available in English, French, and Spanish. And again, there is support. There's a whole team dedicated to helping with any issue you may encounter for using the DCE app. Now, I know I promised a break. I am not going to keep my promise, I apologize, but we have 15 minutes left that I would like to use to cover the remaining items so we finish on time. However, if the chat is not open, please open the chat now, the Q&A, so that any questions you have can be seen by the team available to answer your questions. And of course, if we end the session before we have answered all the questions, we will take the time to finish answering your questions before we close the chat and the session. So should we not be able to answer all questions by the end of the sessions, then we will continue answering until we have answered the last question. And you would see the answers as long as you have not logged out of the session. Okay, so thank you for opening the chat. I think it's open now. And to my colleagues for now answering any questions that may come into the chat. We are going to look at change of address or bank details. So if you in the future needed to change your address or your bank details or both, then here is some information. So first of all, main takeaways. Please ensure the fund always has your up-to-date address on file. This is very important. One, because this is where we will send you your CE form, and you may need it if you can't use the DCE app or can't access your CE form inside Member Self-Service. Also, it's just important that we can send you whatever we need to send you at a valid address. And for the address, you can update your mailing address inside Member Self-Service if you're not on the 2-track and it is not a pouch address. So it can be done inside Member Self-Service. You don't need to submit a form if you can do this in Member Self-Service. This is, I think, key takeaway for the address item. So generally speaking, updating your address for those who are not on the 2-track and who don't have a pouch address can be done inside Member Self-Service under the Address tab. If you cannot use Member Self-Service, then you have to submit a form called PF23M to the fund. So you can access this form in your Member Self-Service, or if you can't access Member Self-Service, on our website under the Resources menu under Forms. For updating banking instructions, this cannot be done in Member Self-Service. For this, you have to submit a form called PF23, which you can download from Member Self-Service under the e-Forms tab. How to submit these forms to the fund? You can, first of all, download and print them in Member Self-Service under e-Forms. You have to hand sign them, date them, and complete them with the relevant details. And then you return them to us, either inside your Member Self-Service account under the MSS document upload function as a scanned copy, or by sending it by mail if you can't use Member Self-Service. If you're mailing the form to us, it must be the original form with your original hand signature. All requests by form must be hand signed. This is very important. And even if you upload the documents in Member Self-Service, they must be hand signed. Here are the forms. PF23M for change of address on the left-hand side, and PF23 for change of banking instructions, currency, etc., and address on the right-hand side. If you want to change both your address and your banking details, use form PF23. If you're only changing your address and you can't use Member Self-Service, only use form PF23M. Anything to keep in mind? Yes. When you are changing your payment instructions, keep in mind that it will take the fund a little bit of time to implement this change. In other words, don't close a bank account until you have received your first payment into the new account after you submitted a request to change payment instructions. So again, if you're changing payment instructions, you have to submit the form. You have to allow a little bit of time for the fund to make the change, and only then, once you have seen that the first payment reaches your new account, should you close your old account. Excuse me. If your bank informs you that your bank codes, like the sort or SWIFT code, have changed, please make sure to inform the fund ASAP using form PF23. We do not accept change of payment instructions via email, photocopy, or fax. The only exception to that is if there is a change in just the intermediary bank, and this would apply for cross-border payments, where we would accept an email with the name and SWIFT code of the new intermediary bank. That is the only exception where we accept information via email. Otherwise, we need to receive the duly completed form in the manner that we instructed earlier. So I already said, allow for time for the fund to make the change and make sure that you received your first payment into your new account. Cost of living. Moving on to the next chapter. Cost of living adjustments. The main takeaway is all pension benefits paid by the pension fund are adjusted for cost of living over time. There is a whole pension adjustment system in our regulations and rules that governs changes to cost of living. I will not go into all the nitty-gritty detail, but there's a lot of information here in these pages that you can read in more detail if you're interested. There's a web page with information about change in cost of living that would also help you get more information. So how often are cost of living changes applied by the fund? First of all, how are the rates fixed? What is the periodicity? mechanism, and the date for both US dollar and local track cost of living changes, and who is in charge of all of this. So generally speaking, excuse me, most benefits in the fund are adjusted for cost of living based on the movements of the Consumer Price Index, or CPI, for the United States. This is all the payments made under the dollar track. That doesn't mean that you are paid in the US dollar currency necessarily, but it means you are not on the 2 track. So if your benefit is on the so-called dollar track, even if paid in a different currency than the dollar, it will be adjusted periodically, generally in April every year, or whenever applicable, based on movements of the Consumer Price Index for the United States. Benefits are adjusted usually once a year, provided the Consumer Price Index has moved by at least 2% since the last adjustment date. Adjustments are only made if there is a 2% or more movement. If it's a lesser movement, there won't be a change, no adjustment until the following year, when this change may be carried over and applied together with a new adjustment at that time. Usually these adjustments are done in April, effective 1st of April, but sometimes in high inflation situations, it could be that there is a second adjustment in October, where Consumer Price Index have moved by 10% or more since April. This is very rare, but it can happen. But I would retain that generally speaking, adjustments are not more than once a year and usually in April. Last year, the adjustment for the US dollar track was a 3.4% increase for the US dollar track benefits. And of course, anyone on the 2 track would have had adjustments in line with the same principles that I'd already explained before, based on their country of residence and CPI for that country. The fund is bound to use the CPI data as published in the monthly Bulletin of Statistics of the UN Statistics Division. So we follow the Statistics Division here. And for those who are on the 2 track, we also provide special cost of living adjustment letters with details, just like for the US dollar track. I think these are the key items I want to cover. I would say if you are in MSS, you can access all COLA letters, so the letters informing you of cost of living adjustments, in Member Self-Service under the Document tab whenever they are being published. So you could check from time to time. You would also probably notice these adjustments because the amount that you received from one month to the next would have changed. At that time, it's worth checking if there was a COLA adjustment. That is it for adjustments to UN pension benefits. We are now having a look at the emergency fund quickly before the last item of how to contact the fund, and then closing this session. The UN Pension Fund Emergency Fund. Main takeaways for this chapter or topic. Those in receipt of a regular monthly payment from the fund, like retirees, like survivors, like disability recipients, may qualify for a one-time emergency fund payment in case they suffer financial hardship and meet specific eligibility conditions. It should be remembered that emergency fund payments are one-time payments. They are not payments that will supplement monthly payments, and they are not going to be regular payments in time. So, the UN Pension Fund has a so-called emergency fund that has a certain amount of money, contains a certain amount of money, just over $100,000 per year, that we can distribute as special one-time emergency fund payments to those who meet eligibility requirements. There's a video and there's a whole booklet on the emergency fund and the conditions that apply for payments to that apply to be eligible for an emergency fund payment. Emergency fund payments can be made in situations where a member in the fund, a beneficiary, has special medical expenditures that they cannot cover and that are not covered by their health insurance, or in case they do not have health insurance. In that case, the fund may be able to do a one-time payment to help with these special medical payments. Emergency fund payments could also be done to help with funeral expenses for either our retiree or beneficiary or the spouse or dependent child of a retiree or beneficiary. Specific conditions apply, and of course, we would have to review case by case whether someone meets the conditions of financial hardship and general eligibility requirements to be awarded a one-time emergency fund payment. We also have what we call a special emergency fund assistance in the context of natural disaster. If you suffer losses due to natural disaster, you lose your house, or the part of your house is burned, or you have whatever hardship, financial hardship, stemming from a natural disaster that happened in the location of your official mailing address. You could contact the fund and request for a one-time special payment from the fund to help with this natural disaster situation. This one-time payment would be a few $100s if awarded. And if in addition you also fulfill the other conditions where we could potentially make another emergency fund payment under the other conditions, we would also look to see if we can help there. So emergency fund payments can be made, but they are subject to review on a case-by-case basis. We have a special provision in our regulations and rules that is called Note A that sets out the conditions under which the fund may make special or regular an emergency fund payment to a member of the fund that is a retiree or beneficiary. So I mentioned earlier, you can submit an initial request via your member self-service. In that case, please make sure you first have read the booklet on emergency fund assistance so that you know what is required, and submit additional documents via member self-service document upload to support your request. Once we receive your request via member self-service, we will reach out to you with questions if needed, and maybe requesting additional supporting documents if needed. And then we can inform you whether or not you qualify for a payment. If you can't use member self-service, you can submit a request in writing using the usual mailing system. That was about the emergency fund. We are now concluding the session by having a look at how can you contact us to make sure you get help when you need it from us. I know I already mentioned this earlier when we looked at the website, but I do want to just repeat that. Number one, the fund's contact center, the call center, functions 24 hours, 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, providing services in English and French, and to an extent in Spanish. So you can reach us Monday to Friday, 24 hours throughout the year. All queries, whether by phone or in writing, should be submitted using the official contact channels provided on our website on the Contact Us webpage. This is the only way that we can ensure they are duly received, tracked, acknowledged, and actioned in a timely manner. So this is my request, please, from you. If you contact us, please use the official channels so that we can ensure they are being handled by the right team in a timely manner, in the right manner. The Contact Us page is on our website. It's highlighted here in the orange box. And on that page, I showed you the form earlier that you can complete for written queries, or on the right-hand side for the New York and Geneva offices, you have the walk-in service hours and also mailing addresses under each of these offices. And of course, the telephone number to reach our contact center including toll-free numbers to reach the contact center when you need it. So this is just a repeat of what I already said. There's also a reminder that under the urgent assistance webpage that I showed you earlier, we have specific mailboxes that we advertise for cases of non-receipt of a regular monthly benefit that was in payment, where payment stopped, or for cases where a member of the fund passed away and we need to be informed of the passing by a survivor. Here's a list of specific email addresses that you may have seen for the fund that you can use to contact us if you don't want to use the contact form, although we generally suggest you use the contact form because it allows for better categorization. You can reach us for request of your unique ID number at that email on the left-hand side, support with member self-service at that email, MSS support, for support with payment stopped or death-related at those specific mailboxes, or support with the digital certificate of entitlement at the dce@unjspf.org mailbox. So these mailboxes continue to exist, and all these queries can also be submitted, obviously, via the contact form. And with this, I finish the session. I know that we have received a good number of queries. I see that about 6 are still outstanding and need to be answered. So we will have a look at those and continue responding to them. And then once we have answered all the questions, we will close this session. But I will at this time log off from this session and can only thank everyone so much. Thank you very much for having attended this 2.5-hour session. I apologize again that I deprived you of the break, but thank you for staying on. And as I said earlier, you have the recording of this session on our website under the resources menu where it says Pension Town Halls. So you can access the recording and this actual PowerPoint at any time there. And we will have the same session in French next month in February. And we will advertise the date for the French session shortly, as well as the link so that you can join. Or those that may want to join in French can join. And then I just wish everyone a very happy 2025. And I thank my colleagues in the fund and OICT for your support and for having attended this session and for having answered well over 60 questions from our retirees and beneficiaries. Thank you so much. And I wish you all a very good and healthy 2025.